Well, hey, welcome to week 3 of our series, Clarity in the Chaos. Welcome to those joining us online as well. Glad you're with us today. And in this series, I hope that we can find some clarity. That's what we've been talking about, because there's a lot of chaos in the world, whether it's the world kind of globally or even the world around us. We've been talking about some different things. In week 1 of the series, we talked about the chaos in our country and with the election and how we can have clarity through all of that chaos. And last week, we talked about the chaos within all of ourselves, that we all have this battle of light and dark on the inside of us. And we talked about we want to feed the light side, feed the things of God in our life. So we've been talking about kind of working through that chaos. Today, we're talking about kind of how the chaos in this world makes us feel. Where does it leave us? You know, with all of the chaos in this world, it can leave us with these feelings of uncertainty, or maybe that even life is hard or unfair. You ever feel that? Like life is hard, it's unfair, it's uncertain, especially when we just look at everything that's going on in the world. I don't know if you like to watch the news or not. I know some people are like, I watch the news all the time. Like for me, like I watch the weather and then I turn that thing off. And that's like all I watch because like I find it to be a little depressing. But some people like to know what's going on in the world. And the problem is I feel like we have so much information accessible to us now. And so like you watch the news and it's just all doom and gloom, right? All the bad news leads the news networks and it can just leave us with these feelings of uncertainty. And we see all these natural disasters. We see the wars in this world. We see the problems in this world. And it can just make us feel unsettled, uncertain. And then you also see like all of the scandal or things in this world. How do people get ahead? How do people get away with this? Sometimes it's like celebrities or different people that are big in the news. And we see that they've gotten away with certain things maybe for a long time. Maybe they're still getting away with it. We're like, that seems unfair. And again, we have all of these feelings that are attached to it and with all of this chaos in the world. But it's a different thing when it's even maybe more personal. I mean, maybe we encounter some chaos right close to our lives, and those feelings of life being unfair can happen. Like, I don't know if you have ever experienced that. I know, like, there's been times when, like, I felt like I'm trying to do the right thing, and, like, it doesn't quite pan out the way I want it to. Or maybe it's happened like this, too, when, like, I've gotten, like, a bill at a restaurant multiple times, and I notice, like it's not right. Like, they didn't charge me for something, and so I'm like, well, the honest thing to do is to let them know, and I don't want, like, our server to get in trouble or something like that. And so I'm like, hey, you didn't charge us for this or that. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. And then they add money to it, and I'm kind of like, oh, man, I thought they were just going to be like, well, that's okay, don't worry about it. That's what I was hoping for. But again, I was trying to do it for the right reasons, but they're always like, no, okay, let me add that on. You're like, oh, okay. And then you kind of feel bad for doing the right thing, but that's what you want to do, right? You want to do the right thing. I've had that happen with school and grades and stuff before, too. But, you know, again, that's like a small thing, but I think we can encounter this maybe in lots of different ways, too. Maybe you just look around and it feels like everyone else just has it so easy, and it feels like you're just struggling to get by each day, and you just feel like, man, this is so unfair. Or maybe there was a promotion at work or an opportunity to get ahead, and you didn't get it, and you felt you deserved it, and the person that got it, you know them, and you know their story and what they're doing, and maybe they're cheating to get ahead, or they're cutting corners, and you're like, they don't even deserve this. Why didn't I get that? It feels like life is unfair and uncertain, and whereas you see the people that are just like they're not good people, they're bad people actually. Like you know them, you've experienced maybe that, and they just seem to be like carefree, and you're just like, why am I struggling when I'm just trying to do the right thing? Have you had those feelings? It just feels like the chaos can leave us with feelings of uncertainty, life is unfair, and life is hard. So how do we find clarity through that chaos in order to face those things? Well, someone in the Bible has this exact same experience. And so we're looking at his words today that he might give us some insight. And so as always, I want to encourage you to check out the YouVersion Bible app. It's something that we talk about all the time here. It's a great way just to engage with God's words on a regular basis. We talked about last week, if we're going to deal with the chaos within ourselves, we got to feed the things of God in our life. And so this is a great way to do that. And so we have like a different Bible reading plan for each week of this series. Also, there's some directions towards on the screen if you want to follow along today. There's also some group questions in there that you can do with a group of people or with your family or even just for personal reflection. So great resource. I want to always encourage you to check that out. And so if you want to follow along today, you can use that resource as well. And we're looking in Psalms chapter 73. It's a psalm of Asaph. And here's what he says to us as he begins verse 1. It says this: "Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet almost slipped. I nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." He's like, I know God's good, but in the middle of all this chaos, what I saw is there was people who are arrogant and wicked, and they're getting ahead. And when I was looking at that, I almost lost my footing. I almost slipped up. Like I almost did the wrong thing. Maybe something we can relate. He goes on to talk about this too. He continues the next verse. He says, "They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong, and they are free from common human burdens. They are not plagued by human ills. Therefore, pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. They have calloused hearts that come from iniquities. Their evil imaginations have no limits. They scoff and they speak with malice, and with arrogance they threaten opposition. Their mouths lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of earth. And therefore their people turn to them and drink up their waters in abundance." They say, what would God know? Does the Most High know anything? This is what it's like with the wicked, always free of care, and they go on amassing wealth. He's like, here we have these wicked people. They curse God. They're violent. They bully other people. They seem to have no worries. And he's looking at them like, this is so unfair. Because he goes on to say this. He says, "Surely in vain I've kept my heart pure, and I've washed my hands in innocence. All day long I've been afflicted, and every morning brings new punishment." He's like, I've been trying to do the right thing, and all I get is suffering and punishment. Life is so unfair. He says, "If I had spoken out like that, I would have betrayed your children. And when I tried to understand all of this, it troubled me deeply." Can you relate to that? Have you felt like life is unfair? Like you're trying to do the right thing and it's just not panning out? Like you see other people and you're like, is it even worth it for me to even try to do this? Because they have no worries. Should I just live like that? We see all of this chaos from all these other people and their choices, and they seem to be no worries. Maybe I should just follow suit. You ever felt like that? And then you take like all of that feelings of life is hard or unfair, and then you add on top of it like all of the other chaos in this world, the wars, the natural disasters, the suffering, and all those feelings of uncertainty, and it just feels like, what is the world coming to? Is this the end? Is this chaos going to consume me? Actually, Jesus' disciples felt that way. They felt like with all of these things going on in the world, they felt like, is this the end of the world? Is this going to happen? I don't know if you've heard people talk about that. I know like when the war broke out in Gaza, I've heard a lot of people talk about it, including my mom, and be like, well, Jesus is coming back soon. This is the end of the world. But she's been telling me that since I was like a kid in like middle school. And so like she keeps telling me that. But those are feelings, right? Like we see the signs of the times. And it's like, is this the end? These feelings of uncertainty. That's how Jesus' disciples felt. Here's what they said to Jesus in Matthew chapter 24. It says, as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? What will be the signs of your coming and the end of the age? Jesus answered them, watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places, and all of this is the beginning of the birth pains. Jesus goes on to talk about how there'll be lawlessness, there'll be persecution of his people, that there will be this time of tribulation, but one day he is coming back to make it right. But you look at that list, right? And you're like, wars and rumors of wars, kingdom against kingdom, famine, earthquake. Like that's all around, isn't it? We see that. That's like what dominates the news. We see that in our world. This brings these feelings of uncertainty along with that. Do you feel that? Like the world just isn't right? Like things aren't just right with the world? I know, like I felt that. Like things just don't seem right. The pain, the suffering, life is unfair, it's hard. And like then you throw on top of that, like the lions are good. You're like, this can't be real. Is the world coming to an end? Because it used to be like, the lions will be good when hell freezes over, when pigs fly. You're like, is this the end? They're good. I don't know what's happening. But we can get these feelings of like, is this the end? And it can just add to that stress. It can add to that chaos. It can add to that uncertainty. But Jesus shares this not because he wants to add to the chaos of like, is this the end? But because this can be our source of hope, of what is certain. He talked about the birth pains there. Like if you are giving birth to a child, there is the pain of labor, but you're giving birth to a new life. In the same sense, our world is broken because of sin, because of suffering. And these are the pains, he says, of like childbirth, that one day he will be coming back and that he will be coming back to bring his people home to heaven. There'll be a new heaven, a new earth, and all the things will be restored, be made right. See, that's our certainty in the middle of uncertain times. And so some people are just kind of always default to this, though, like, well, God's coming back soon. Like, I don't know if you ever hear people say that, and they're like, is that going to happen soon? Well, one of the things is, in those moments of uncertainty, notice what Jesus says. In this passage, he said, you will hear about wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. We're going to see all of this chaos around us. But Jesus says, see to it that you're not alarmed. Because you can have certainty even in uncertain times. And he goes on to share about how he is our source of certainty. But we don't know when it's going to happen. In verse 36, he says this, about the day and the hour, no one knows, not even the angels nor the Son, but only the Father. There's not like this big countdown clock in heaven to the end of the world and stuff like that. That's not happening. Like no one knows when it's going to happen. And so the point is, the point is that we got to be ready, right? Like Jesus makes some vague statements, wars, rumors of wars, famine, earthquakes, like those things happen in every generation. Even the disciples 2,000 years ago were wondering if that was the end. And so the point is that we're not going to know when, but that shouldn't give us more uncertainty. The point is to be ready so we can be certain. It goes on to say this at the end of this chapter in verse 42. He says, therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of a house had known what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour that you do not expect. Like this is the whole point, is even in the middle of chaos, we can have certainty in uncertain times if we're being ready, if we're being focused. I was able to sit down with a family about a month ago, and they were together all as a family because there was the mom, the grandma, the great-grandma. She was at the end of her life. She was 90-some years old, and they asked me to come and talk with them because they wanted some certainty in uncertain times. They were asking questions like, how do we know she's going to heaven? And so we were just talking about how do we have certainty in these uncertain times when life is hard, whether that's from struggle or whether that's from the chaos in this world. And I was just able to share with them, like, Jesus is our foundation in these moments. We can have certainty if we put our trust in him, if we walk in him. And one of the things I just challenged them was, if you want to have certainty, like, live in such a way. Don't just try to skate in. Don't just try to look around and be like, no one else cares, so why should I care? That's not the point. The point is to live in such a way where you know God is with you, where you know God personally. Live in such a way where you don't have to have uncertainty because you've trusted God and you know he's with you. We can have that certainty, but it comes from dealing with that chaos within, like we talked about last week. So this world, it can bring these feelings of uncertainty, and life is unfair, life is hard. And so how do we have clarity through all of this? Let's go back to Psalms 73. It continues, it says this: when I tried to understand all this, I was deeply troubled till I entered the sanctuary of God. See, then he got a different perspective. He found some clarity in the middle of the chaos. He said, all of this chaos around me, it was consuming my life. It was making me feel all of these feelings of uncertainty and unfair and how life is so hard. But then I entered the sanctuary of God. And then he says, I understood their final destiny. Surely you place them on slippery ground. You cast them down to ruins. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakes. When you arise, Lord, you despise them like fantasies. What are you saying here? It sounds a little barbaric, because this was actually a very kind of violent age that he's writing this in the point of human history. But what he's saying is, all these things that they have, you can't take it with you. All these things, when you look around and you say, like, why isn't my life like that? They seem to have it so much better. Why are they getting the promotion? Why do they have those things? They don't deserve those things. Why don't I have this? Why am I going through hard times? All of it is a focus on things of this world, of getting ahead. It's a perspective of, like, I want my life to be easy and convenient and better. Why do I have to suffer? It was all a focus on me. And when we live with a focus on me, we might be able to get some things and get ahead, even if we cut corners. But what he says here is, like, those things are only temporary. When we put all of our hopes and dreams in money and stuff and success in this world, what we're left with at the end is nothing. He said there's something bigger to live for that can bring us certainty in uncertain times, that can help us have clarity through these times when life is hard and unfair. And he goes on to say this, he goes, when my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you. He was like, God, I was an idiot. I was looking at all the wrong things. That's basically what he's saying here. And he goes on to say, yet I am with you always. You hold me by your right hand. You guide me with your counsel. And afterwards you take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And on earth has nothing I desire besides you. See, he comes to this point saying, like, all of this other stuff that I've been focused on, like, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm suffering, and they have that, and why should they have that? All of that stuff, he says, that is nothing. None of that things on this earth can satisfy me or give me the hope I need or the life that I need. He says, only God does. He says this, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is my strength of my heart and my portion forever. He's my portion forever. He's the thing that I need, the one who can truly satisfy what I need in life, the one who can bring certainty in uncertain times. He is that portion. He says, those who are far from you will perish. You destroy all who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge, and I will tell of your deeds. He says at the end there, it is good to be near God. See, when we're near God, the chaos of this world begins to fade away in the view of his face, in the view of his goodness. All of that chaos and uncertainty and how life is unfair, all that kind of fades away because it's good to be near God. He brings things into perspective. Like, I don't know if you can picture this with me. Like, if you're looking at something and it's far away, then you can see maybe that one thing, but you can see everything else around it, right? But if that thing moves really close to you, or if you move really close to it, then all you can see is that one thing. Like, when I think about that, I think of my kids when they were little. They used to sit right in front of the TV, like super close, because then it's like you're at the movie theater, right? Because it's like the 30-inch TV becomes like a giant screen because you're so close. And when they would sit that close, they would have their snacks and they'd be watching, and they would be so close where they would have to actually move side to side to see what was happening on this side of the TV because they were so close, and that's all they could see. And then you would try to talk to them, and they wouldn't even hear you because they were so dialed in because that thing was all they could see right in front of them. And in the same way, it says it is good to be near God. When we're close to him, if he's the only thing that we are really focused on, all of that other chaos around us doesn't seem to bring those same feelings of uncertainty and how life is hard and unfair because we see God. We know his right hand is there to hold us through the struggles. We know that he is there to guide us, to give us counsel, to give us clarity through the chaos. We know that no matter what happens to us, he is the strength and our portion forever. So it is good to be near God. It is good because when we're that close to him, we see the hope and the life and the mercy and the grace and the love that only he can give. And in comparison to that, all the other chaos fades away. All the other chaos fades away. God is our guide, our portion, our strength through the chaos. So if you find yourself like Asaph, where life feels uncertain and unfair, where you look around and you see, why am I struggling? Why is everyone getting ahead? Why don't I have this thing or that thing or the other thing? Maybe this is the time where we need to bring into a new perspective into our life, because it is good to be near God. Maybe we need to draw closer to him. Or if you find yourself like the disciples, where maybe there's fear and uncertainty because of all the chaos in this world, know that Jesus is going to come back and make it all right. And the point is to be ready and to look to him to be that foundation, our certainty in uncertain times. To look to him, because it is good to be near God. Again, I don't know what you're feeling or facing. I do know that this world is full of chaos. And Jesus never promised that life was going to be easy. In fact, he said the opposite. He said, in this world, you're going to have trouble, but take heart because he has overcome the chaos. The chaos doesn't have to consume you. It doesn't have to leave you feeling uncertain and how life is so hard and unfair. It doesn't have to leave us that way. He can overcome. That's why it's good to be near God, to shift our perspective onto the one who can be our guide and our strength and our portion forever. So let's just do that now. I'm going to ask you just to close your eyes with me in this moment. Maybe just to think about what you're going through, or that chaos, or that suffering, or that hardship. In this moment, maybe just ask God to be your strength and your portion as you're facing that. Maybe just ask God to guide you through that chaos. Maybe ask God to give you a new perspective. Whatever's on your heart, just take a moment and respond. God, as we go through this world on a daily basis, life is hard. And in many moments, it can feel unfair and uncertain. But we're asking you to be our foundation, to be our certainty in these uncertain times. As we have to deal with this chaos around us, may you be our guide through it, to give us clarity through the chaos, to be that guide for us. May we keep you as our perspective in life. May we see life through your eyes, God, to not be consumed by how life is unfair, but to know that you have overcome and you are there for us to guide us, to direct us, and one day you will make everything right. Be our hope, God. In this moment, maybe just quietly in your own heart, I encourage you to just ask God to be your portion, your strength, and your guide for whatever you're facing. Just respond in that way. God, be our guide through the chaos. Be our portion to satisfy our hearts when life feels unfair. Be our strength forever, our hope and certainty in these uncertain times. God, don't let this chaos consume us, but draw us near to you, because it is good to be near you, God. Praise in your name. Amen. We're going to respond with a couple songs. I'm going to invite you to stand with us to make these our prayer.